The doorbell rang at 2:47 a.m. on Halloween night. I know because I checked my phone, thinking it was some drunk idiots pulling pranks. I swear I was ready to report them this time, but when I looked through the peephole, my heart nearly stopped. He was standing on my porch, smiling that warm smile I hadn't seen in over a month. I yanked the door open and threw my arms around him.
Dad! What are you doing here? Why didn't you call?
I just missed my baby girl, he said, hugging me, but his skin felt cold through the jacket. And when I pulled away, I noticed how pale he looked. He was nearly gray.
Are you feeling okay? You look...
I'm fine, sweetheart. Just tired from the long drive. How about we make some of that mac and cheese you used to love? We spent the next hour in the kitchen, laughing and talking. Dad told me all about fresh investments, Mom's garden, and roasted my ex-boyfriend like he had personally offended him, which he did. But even through the normalcy, I could feel it in the air. Something was off about him. Dad kept glancing towards the windows, and every time a car drove by, his whole body would tense up.
Dad, seriously, what's wrong? You're acting weird.
There's nothing wrong, Princess. Suddenly, the doorbell went off. Dad's face went white as a sheet, like someone had drained all the blood from his body. Don't answer that, he said, before I could step down from the stool.
What? Why not? It's probably some drunk...
Whoever's out there wants to hurt you bad. Don't go near that door, Camilla. The doorbell rang again, and this time it didn't stop ringing. Suddenly, there was pounding and rattling, as if someone was trying to pull the door off its hinges. Whoever it was, they were extremely desperate to get in.
Dad, lay low! I'm calling the cops!
They won't make it in time. Go to the basement, now!
What? I'm not leaving you alone to...
Before I could finish the sentence, the living room window exploded. Glass shards flew everywhere as this guy in a torn hoodie climbed through, holding a crowbar that caught the light like a blade. His eyes were wild, darting around the room like a cornered animal. Nobody moves! He screamed, waving the crowbar. I just need a place to hide! Before I could react, Dad grabbed my arm and shoved me toward the basement door. His grip was impossibly strong, stronger than I even remembered. Go hide! He pushed me so hard I stumbled down the first few steps. The basement door slammed shut behind me, and I heard the loud click.
Dad! Dad!
I pounded on the door, but it wouldn't budge. What happened next was the worst 20 minutes of my life. I lay slumped against the door, listening to hell break loose above me. Furniture crashed against walls. Glass shattered. I could hear Dad shouting, then the intruder screaming back. My whole body was shaking. All I could think about was that crowbar in the guy's hand and my dad up there alone. Dad was 52, had a bad back from years of construction work, and this maniac looked young and desperate. What if he killed him? What if I were listening to my father die and couldn't do anything to help?
Please, God. Please don't let him hurt my dad. I
whispered over and over, tears streaming down my face. The sounds got worse. There were even more crashes, something that sounded like a body hitting the wall. I pressed my hands over my ears, but I could still hear everything. Then came that ear-piercing shriek that made my blood freeze. It didn't sound human, more like an animal being slaughtered. It went on forever before cutting off into dead silence. I don't know how long I sat there in the dark, shaking and crying before I heard sirens. The police had to break down the basement door because somehow it had gotten jammed. Are you hurt? The first cop asked, helping me up the stairs. Outside, the living room looked like a war zone. Furniture was overturned. There was glass everywhere and blood splattered on the walls. They found the intruder curled up in the corner, rocking back and forth and babbling about fiery spirit. He broke into the gas station down the street first, one of the officers explained. Then came here looking for somewhere to hide. Lucky you were smart enough to hide in the basement. Probably saved your life.
Dad! Where's my dad? Where is he?
I sobbed. The cops looked confused. Your dad? Ma'am, there's no one else here.
But he was here. We were talking in the kitchen, and when that guy broke in...
Ma'am, we've searched the whole house. You're the only one here. That's when my phone rang. It was Mom.
Camilla, we've been trying to call you. Your father. He had a heart attack at work tonight. He's gone, baby. He died at 1:30.
The phone slipped from my hands, clattering on the floor. 1:30 a.m., an hour and 17 minutes before he'd shown up at my door. The cops were staring at me now, probably thinking I was in shock. One of them picked up my phone and handed it back to me. "Your mother wants to talk to you," he said gently. I looked around the destroyed living room, at the blood on the walls, at the intruder still muttering about seeing a dead man.
He came to protect me.
I gulped. Even in death, Dad had kept his promise to always be there when I needed him. The intruder was still raving about the ghost he'd seen, about how the old man had appeared out of nowhere with eyes that looked right through him. The cops thought he was having a psychotic break, but I knew better. Dad had come home one last time to save me. Dads will do anything for their kids, and not even God can intervene. I was 15, visiting my grandparents for the week before Halloween in Granger Hollow. It was this small town in the middle of nowhere, but my cousin Evan acted like he knew the place like the back of his hand, and had been hyping up this harvest fair all week. On Halloween night, we walked to the fairgrounds on the edge of town. The place was lit up with flickering torches and strings of orange lights. It cast everything in this eerie glow. The air was thick with smoke from bonfires and the smell of hay and spiced cider. I have to admit, the atmosphere was pretty sick. There were booths selling weird trinkets, hay rides through fake graveyards, and people in the most insane costumes I'd ever seen. Evan immediately ditched me to hit on some girls dressed as Disney princesses while I wandered around by myself, checking out the games and stuff. That's when I felt a tap on my shoulder. I turned around and nearly jumped out of my skin. Standing behind me was this clown straight out of a nightmare. His costume was faded and patchy, like it had been rotting in someone's basement for decades. The makeup was thick and cracked, with this painted-on smile that was way too wide, while his eyes were these pale blue things that seemed to track the number of times I blinked. He was holding out a piece of candy, some kind of corn syrup thing wrapped in clear plastic, but the wrapper was covered in cat hair and dust, like he'd pulled it out of a garbage can. "Want some candy, kiddo?" he offered, grinning. I looked at the nasty candy and then back at his face. The vibe around him made my skin crawl. "No thanks," I said, backing away. He didn't say anything else, just stood there holding out that gross candy as I turned and walked away as fast as I could. I found Evan by the haunted house. He was still trying to impress those princess girls. "Dude, there's this really creepy clown over by the games. Like, seriously messed up."
A clown? That's probably just Friendo.
One of the girls giggled.
He's like the town legend or whatever. Used to be the mascot of this syrup factory that closed down years ago.
"He's harmless, bro," Evan said, not even looking at me. "Just some old weirdo in a costume." But as we moved through the fair, I kept seeing him in my peripheral vision. He was behind the apple bobbing booth one second, and next, I spotted him standing next to the hayride or lurking by the bonfire. Every time I looked directly at him, he'd vanish. But each time I tell Evan, he'd just laugh and shrug. "There!" I grabbed Evan's arm and pointed. "See? By the corn maze entrance. He's giving me the creeps, Evan." Evan followed my finger and saw Friendo standing there, still as a statue, staring right at us. "All right, 'cause you're my cousin," Evan scoffed as he picked up a rock from the ground. "Hey, Friendo! Catch!" He hurled it at the clown. I watched it smack right into his forehead. Blood immediately started running down his face, mixing with the white makeup. Friendo didn't scream or wince. He didn't even touch the wound. He just stared at us for another few seconds, letting the blood soak his clothes before he walked back into the crowd. "Holy shit, Evan. Why did you do that?" "Relax, he'll be fine." but I couldn't shake the feeling that we'd just made a huge mistake. By midnight, the fair was winding down. Most of the families had gone home, leaving just teenagers and drunk adults stumbling around. Evan finally got bored trying to impress girls, and we decided to head back to my grandma's house. Instead of taking the main road, Evan insisted we cut through the cornfield behind the fairgrounds. "It's faster," he said. The fog had rolled in thick, making it hard to see more than a few feet in any direction. The corn stalks towered over our heads, rustling in the wind. We were maybe halfway through when we heard the laughter, raspy and broken, like someone gargling glass. It echoed through the field from somewhere behind us. "Did you hear that?" I whispered. Evan stopped walking. "Yeah." The laughter came again, closer this time. We turned around, and I saw a shape moving through the fog. He was tall and wrong, shambling towards us between the corn rows. "Friendo!" I gaped. The blood had dried black on his face, and he was carrying something that glinted in the moonlight. As he got closer, I could see it was an axe. The dark blade was something that definitely wasn't rust. His painted smile seemed even wider now, stretching impossibly across his face. "Run," Evan breathed. We bolted through the corn, stalks whipping across our faces as we crashed through row after row. Behind us, Friendo's laughter got louder and more excited. He was enjoying this. I could hear him crashing through the corn behind us, that horrible giggling getting closer. My lungs were burning, and my legs felt like jello, but I kept running. "This way!" Evan grabbed my arm and yanked me to the right. We burst out of the cornfield and onto the main road, sprinting toward the streetlights of town. I looked back once and saw Friendo standing at the edge of the field, axe hanging at his side. He wasn't following us anymore. He just watched. The fog swirled around him like he was part of it. We ran all the way to my grandparents' house and locked every door and window. Spent the rest of the night huddled in the living room, jumping at every sound. My grandpa found us there in the morning, looking like we'd seen a ghost. When we told him what happened, his face went white. "You boys stay away from the Harvest Festival from now on," he said quietly. "Some traditions in this town are better left alone." I never found out who Friendo really was or what happened to him after that night, but I know one thing for sure. I'm never spending another Halloween in Granger Hollow. Kyle dragged me to this Halloween party against my will, even when he knew how much I hated parties, crowds, and all that pretending. "Julia's gonna be there," he said with this wink as he walked over. My stomach dropped. "Why the hell would you tell me that now?" "Come on, man, she's cute and obviously into you." Into me was putting it lightly. Julia had been stalking me for months. It started when I made the mistake of being polite to her at a Starbucks. Next thing I know, she's showing up everywhere I go and leave this creepy stuff behind. Dead birds wrapped in black cloth, jars filled with dirt and hair. When I told her to back off, she just smiled and said she'd come around once the moon was right. The girl was totally unhinged, but I couldn't let her dictate my life. I told myself I'd enjoy the party, and I did, until I saw her again. She was across the room, dressed like Aunt Gladys from the movie Weapons. She had makeup that looked like skin rotten in place. It was gray, cracked, and clung to bone. Her eyes were sunken deep, and she had put red contacts on that glowed like coals under the dim light. Stringy hair hung down her shoulders, and I wasn't sure if it was a wig, and her red lipstick was smudged on the corners of her lips. I tried to ignore her, engaging in conversations with other people, but I still could feel her eyes on me wherever I went. At around midnight, she cornered me by the kitchen.
"Dance with me, Eric."
She purred in this raspy voice. "Just stay away."
You can't fight what's meant to be.
"You're crazy. Get help." She scrunched her nose, but backed away. I could see her lips moving like she was muttering to herself. I didn't stick around. Kyle was too drunk to notice, so I slipped out quietly and headed home alone. 3 blocks from my apartment, the street light ahead started flickering. I brushed it off and kept walking, but just as I turned the corner, there she was, still in that Aunt Gladys costume with same rotting makeup and stringy hair. But instead of the red contacts, now her eyes were pitch black. Not just the pupils, the whole thing, like someone had poured ink into them.
We need to finish this.
She said, "There's nothing to finish. Leave me alone." I tried to walk past her, but she grabbed my wrist. Her skin was ice cold, and her grip was strong enough to bruise.
You don't get to choose.
She hissed. Before I could react, she lunged forward and grabbed a fistful of my hair. Pain shot through my scalp as she yanked hard enough to rip strands out by the roots. "Hey, what the heck are you doing?" She pulled out this twisted piece of wood covered in thorns and started wrapping my hair around it, chanting in some language I didn't recognize. Her voice got deeper with each word, like something else was speaking through her.
You're mine, Eric.
She whispered, her breath hot against my ear.
Body and soul.
The twigs started getting warm near my chin before it burned hot. She snapped it in half while still chanting, and I swear the air around us got thick. "You're insane!" I screamed, finally managing to shove her away. She stumbled but didn't fall. "I would rather die than be with you," I yelled.
That can be arranged.
She giggled as she came at me with the broken twig, thorns aimed at my eyes. I immediately bolted down the street, my sneakers pounding against the concrete. Behind me, I could hear her feet hitting the pavement, but she wasn't running footsteps. Instead, I could hear this weird skipping rhythm, like she was dancing. I glanced back and immediately wish I hadn't. She was moving wrong. Her arms were swinging too loose, and her head had tilted at an angle that should have hurt her neck, but she was gaining on me. I cut through an alley, jumping over trash bags and dodging dumpsters. My lungs were burning, but I could still hear that sick skipping and giggling getting closer. When I looked back, she was maybe 10 feet behind me, grinning that horrible stretched smile.
Eric! You can't run forever!
She squealed. I burst out of the alley and onto the main street. My building was still 2 blocks away. My legs were cramping up, but every time I slowed down even slightly, I'd hear that skipping and chanting getting closer. At the corner, I glanced back. Julia was just a few feet away. Her palms were reaching out to me, and I could feel the heat of her body mingling with mine. Before she could grab me, I shoved an elbow into her ribs, hard. I felt her stumble back, heard a crack, but didn't look twice. I bolted, sprinting down the block like my life depended on it. Maybe it did. I made it to my building and slammed the door behind me, throwing every lock we had. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I could see Aunt Gladys smiling at me. The next morning, Kyle gave me the news. They'd found Julia unconscious on the sidewalk around 3 a.m. with a severe head injury. She was in the hospital, but couldn't remember anything, not even her name or where she lived. "Weird thing is," Kyle said, "there was all this hair scattered around where they found her, human hair, and some kind of burned wood." I touched the sore spot on my scalp where she'd ripped out my hair. The doctors said Julia's memory loss might be permanent. Part of me feels bad about pushing her, but mostly I was relieved. If she couldn't remember me, maybe the nightmare's over.